Let me welcome you all to the next in our series of brown bag luncheons. I'm Howard Hall. I'm the director of the Institute for Nuclear Security here at the university, which of course is part of the Baker Center, the signature facility we are happy to be in today. This week, this month's brown bag is presented by Ray Smith. Ray is the historian for the Y-12 National Security Complex and has, I'm sure, a fascinating talk for us and a bunch of pictures. And for those of you who have always wondered what goes on up in the secret city, well, this is the man who can tell you. So with no further ado, Ray.
Thank you. I told him that podium's in the way. Have I got this turned on and can you hear me all right? Yeah. Everything's working fine. Okay, good. I want to do a couple of things while I'm here. I'll spend just a minute introducing myself in just a minute so you'll have a little bit of scope to place me in. But for the most part, I want to show you a good number of photographs and talk a little about the Oak Ridge before there was an Oak Ridge, a little about the construction, and then a lot about Y-12. I am the Y-12 historian. So I can't get by a talk without talking about Y-12. And we'll do that. Also, while we're doing that, have I messed you up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. But where do you think you'll get it? While I'm doing that, I would love to have an interaction with you and to encourage you to ask me questions. I have some goodie bags that I brought. Now, I must tell you that if you don't ask enough questions, for each one of you that want one to get these, I have a test at the end of the program, and by answering those questions, you'll get a goodie bag as well. What's included is the Secret City DVDs. This is a 90-minute set of probably what I believe is the best history of Oak Ridge that you're going to find. Keith McDaniel made them, and they've been very popular. And then secondly is a nuclear family. It's 4 30-minute episodes. This is on Y-12 that we created for public television. And it ran, Casey, a couple of years ago now. Casey's the one that produced this documentary film, 4 30-minute episodes, Casey Guinan. And I will have a copy of that for you as well. So if you ask a question, you get one. If you answer the test questions at the end, and there are enough left, you get one. Now, for those of the rest of you, just to be totally upfront with you, if you don't ask a question and don't get to answer the test questions and can't get one of these, if you'll give me a business card, I'll mail you one. All right, so anybody that wants it's going to get it. All right, here we go. Let's talk about Ray for just a minute. I came to work at Y-12 in 1970. I've been there 43 years. Most of that time I worked as a maintenance manager. And then in about 2000 we had a change in contractors. That sound familiar? We're doing that again. But we had a change in contractors. Normally when we change contractors, we've done it a few times, we have them to come in and they'll bring in with them a president of the company and a lawyer. And the rest of us just keep doing our jobs. We call ourselves Weebies. We'd be here before you came. We'd be here when you're gone. Now this time though, when this one contractor came in, they brought in 100 people. They replaced the entire top of the organization. So I lost my position. The first thing they had to do was to find 800 buildings. And they didn't have anybody to help them. They made the people mad at them so they wouldn't help. So they called a meeting to see who could help, how could they do this due diligence study they needed to find all these 800 buildings. I went to their meeting and I held up my hand. I said, I know where all 800 of them are. I'll find them for you. So they let me do the due diligence study. Now, what that means, or helped to do it, what that really means is I had to go home that night, learn Microsoft Access, and come back the next day and make a database for them. And we did that. Then they got some money to tear down some of those old structures. And bless their heart, they didn't have a clue which ones they needed for their missions and which ones they could tear down. So they called another meeting. I went to that meeting as well, held up my hand, and I said, I know, I'll make you a list. So I did, I made a list. They've been tearing buildings down out there for 10 years now. We've torn down over 300 buildings, and they're still following that list. I let that go for a couple of years. I worked to help tear those buildings down. And then I went to them and I said, you know, when you tear all these buildings down, you're losing a lot of history. Well, they figured me out by then, so they said, okay, Ray, what is it you want to do about that? I said, I'll be your historian until I retire. And they agreed to that. They've been very supportive of me for about 6 years. We built a history center in the New Hope Center, which is located down there in the very lower right-hand corner of your screen. That's the New Hope Center. That little part with the brick on it is where the History Center is located. And we opened that in July of 2007, and we've had that in operation ever since. You can come to the History Center anytime, Monday through Thursday during work hours, or any other time by calling me and making arrangements. And the New Hope Center is a really good space for public facilities. So it's a good place to have Y-12's history exposed. For the first time ever, really, opening it up and saying, come and look at Y-12, let us tell you what we're doing. So I've enjoyed that opportunity now for some few years. The only problem the contractor has with that agreement is I won't retire. That's too much fun. Okay, that's enough about me. Let's talk just a little bit, just to give you perspective about Oak Ridge. The city of Oak Ridge is up here. This is a satellite photo at night. City up here, and then Y-12, you'll notice is right here. There's a ridge between the city and Y-12, Pine Ridge. And then there's Chestnut Ridge here. You notice the two ridges. The spallation neutron source is actually located right there. This photograph is older than the spallation neutron source. But notice the river. Clinch River runs along the east, the south, and the west border of that 60,000 acres. K-25 is over in this area, the Oak Ridge National Laboratory down here, and then the city runs along White Oak Ridge. So that kind of gives you a perspective of how Oak Ridge is laid out and where the plants are in proximity to one another and in proximity to the city. There are three main sites there. The Y-12 National Security Complex is in Bear Creek Valley, and then we've got the UT Patel, which is the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and then there's the East Tennessee Technology Park, which is located in the west end of the reservation. Most of my talk today will be about Y-12. We'll focus on this portion of the reservation that has Y-12 located down in Bear Creek Valley. Okay, just some statistics, just so you understand. 811 acres. It has about a 5 million square feet of various kinds of research facilities. We have demolished over 1 million square feet, as I told you, in the last 10 years. Those are the acreage of the high security area, the buildings, those kinds of things that we think about. We have about 4,800 there now. We were up to 5,000 in B&W Y-12 employees, and we've had a couple of hundred in attrition over the last few months. We're at about 4,800. And the National Production Organization is still running about 80. Our main missions at Y-12 have to do with the nuclear deterrence. That nuclear weapons mission has been Y-12's mission since about 1948, in the start of the Cold War, right after the Manhattan Project had ended World War II, and continues to be a mainstay of Y-12's role. We also provide the fuel for the nuclear navy. And the thing that we'll focus on today near the end of the talk will be the non-proliferation and some of the things that we've done in Oak Ridge between the laboratory and Y-12 to reduce the threat of nuclear non-proliferation. And there I hope we'll have some dialogue about what's going on and what might be in store for us in the future. Now, let's begin a little with the history. Y-12 started as a part of the Manhattan Project back in February of 1943, so we're in our 70th anniversary year. It was built primarily to separate the uranium-235 for the world's first atomic weapons. And they used electromagnetic separation process. We'll talk about that in a little more detail in a bit. This is what Y-12 looked like in 1945. These large buildings are where the calutrons were located. I'll explain what they are. But there were 1,152 of them in 9 large buildings. This is why we did it, because of Hitler. Were you asking me a question?
Yes, sir. Why Y-12? Why the designation? Where did Y-12 come from?
Thank you.
We just had like X something,
Yeah,
K something.
thank you.
Why Y-12?
Thank you for that question. Y-12 doesn't mean anything. Took care of that, didn't it?
Ray, for the cameras, could you repeat the questions when folks ask you?
Sure, why Y-12 was the question. And it's a question that we always get, and thank you for that reminder. There were 4 locations during the Manhattan Project in Oak Ridge. There was Y-12, X-10, K-25, and S-50. Those were the 4. S-50 was thermal diffusion, K-25 was the gaseous diffusion, X-10 was the graphite reactor, and Y-12 was the electromagnetic separation. Oak Ridge was the X site, Los Alamos the Y site, and Hanford the W site. Of the 4 designations for Oak Ridge sites, only one of them might have any distinctive meaning. And I'm convinced that it was laid on after the fact rather than thought of beforehand. But it was K-25. The K might stand for the Kellex company that made the gaseous diffusion equipment. The 25 is known to be a shortcut name for uranium-235. Took the 2 off the right-hand side of 92, the atomic number for uranium. And they took the 5 off the right-hand side of 235. And they called it 25. They did the same thing with plutonium. Took the 4 off the right-hand side of 94 and the 9 off the right-hand side of 239. They called it 49. There's a guy who's written a book this last year called Plutonium, the world's most dangerous material. His name's Jeremy Bernstein. On the cover of his book, he has a watermark of a huge 4 and a 9. So he knows the story. That's the only designation that might have any meaning. The map that says an X over the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, a Y over Y-12, and a K over K-25, or the East Tennessee Technology Park, that map wasn't created until the 70s. So it's not grid lines on the map. Y-12 doesn't stand for anything. That's one of my test questions. All right. Thank you for that, and I do appreciate questions. I promise you that I will tell you all the stories I want you to hear in spite of the number of questions you asked me. So I challenge you, ask me enough questions to make me run quickly through these stories. So, Albert Einstein wrote this letter to President Roosevelt telling him that Germany was buying up a lot of uranium ore, and he was concerned that they might be making a bomb out of it. Now this is what Oak Ridge looked like before, the Bear Creek Valley looked like before the Manhattan Project. All right, now, and if you remember, Y-12 lays down in a valley. Notice between Pine Ridge and Chestnut Ridge, it's a half a mile wide, 2.5 miles long. And if you read in the history books will tell you that that may be one of the reasons it was selected. Because, remember, they were building a bomb. If they'd exploded one of the plants, those ridges would project the explosion up in the air and protect the cities. The city was just right on the other side of Pine Ridge. Would protect the city. Well, what may be closer to the truth is when Albert Einstein wrote this letter and sent it to President Roosevelt, Roosevelt knew it was going to be an expensive undertaking to do something with this Manhattan Project. So he put General Groves in charge of the Manhattan Project. And Groves had just finished building the Pentagon, so he knew how to put a large construction project together. He knew how to pull private industry involved, and he knew how to spend money. So President Roosevelt also called in Senator McCulloch. And he said, Senator, I need to put a large amount of money against the war effort. And I can't let the press or anyone know how much it is or what it's being used for. Can you help me with that? Senator McCulloch said, yes, Mr. President. I can do that for you. Just where in Tennessee you going to put that? Now that may have more to do with us getting selected for the Manhattan Project than any lay of the land or ridges and valleys. One other Senator McCulloch story, and I know this one's true. Oh, by the way, the last story that I just told you it's been a number of years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Senator Howard Baker for an oral history. We started off the interview, we set the video cameras up, we had everything in place, and I said to him, tell us about your connection to Oak Ridge, Senator. He says, first let me tell you how that place was chosen. And he went into a very flamboyant discussion, waving his arms and talking about the Senator McCulloch story. And I delighted in that because I captured it on video. When he finished, I said, thank you, sir, for telling the story, or authenticating the story, that I tell everyone who comes to Oak Ridge. He said, where'd you get that story? I said, I got it from Dick Smizer, the editor of the Oak Ridge. He said, that's where I got it, too. So I thought that was really neat to do that. Yes, please.
One time I invited Senator Baker to speak at Oak Ridge National Lab, and he started his talk with the same story.
He liked that, didn't he? He did. One other Senator McCulloch story quickly. And as I say, this one is true because the man that it happened to is still alive today. His name is Lester Fox. He's the patriarch of the Fox automobile dealerships in the area. But in 1942, he was a sophomore in high school at Oliver Springs, a little community just north of Oak Ridge. He was skipping school. Him and his buddy were playing the pinball machine. When they got through, they were walking down the main street of the little town. They walked by the telephone office. The telephone operator leaned her head out and said, Lester, go get the principal. He's got an important phone call. Now, Lester's skipping school, but he does. He goes and gets the principal. Principal comes and takes the phone call, comes back to the school, calls all the students together in an assembly, and says, I've just gotten a phone call from Senator McCulloch. He wants me to tell you to go home and tell your parents you're going to have to find another place to live. The government's going to take your property for the war. Now Lester swears that's the way these 3,000 people first learned that they were going to have to get off of 60,000 acres to make room for the Manhattan Project. In a matter of days, they were getting notices tacked up on their door. Said they had 3 weeks to move. Many of them didn't have automobiles. They didn't have trucks to move their belongings. If they had an automobile, they might not have gas for it or tires for it. Those things were rationed. But what they did have was young men in the military losing their lives. So they wanted to do anything they could to stop that awful killing. So they got off their property in a matter of weeks, literally, and made room for the Manhattan Project. Now, one of those families that had to leave in 1942 was descended from a man named John Hendricks. John's known as the Prophet of Oak Ridge. I want you to watch a video about John's story.
Bear Creek Valley someday will be filled with great buildings and factories, and they will help toward winning the greatest war that will ever be. These words were spoken nearly 40 years before World War II would reach into this peaceful valley, and they were spoken by a man who was considered insane by some, a prophet by others. His name was John Hendricks. At the end of the 1800s, John Hendricks lived with his wife Julia and 4 children near where Bull Run steam plant sits today. But then tragedy struck when his 2-year-old daughter died of diphtheria. Because he had recently disciplined the child, his wife blamed John for her death. Julia left John, taking the remaining 3 children with her to Arkansas, and she never returned. Grieving and guilt-ridden, John sought comfort in religion and began praying devoutly. One day, as legend has it, he heard a voice telling him to go into the woods and lay on the ground for 40 days and 40 nights. Heeding the voice's command, John lay down in the forest and prayed for a sign. As temperatures fell, a kind neighbor brought a blanket to warm John's tortured soul and fed him some chicken soup. She had found him barely alive, with his hair frozen to the ground. When John Hendricks finished sleeping on the ground for 40 nights, he had tremendous stories to tell, and he'd tell anyone that would listen. Of course, they thought he was crazy when he was telling these stories, so they put him in a hospital for the insane. He didn't stay long, however, till he escaped, and he told the authorities God's going to destroy that place. Sure enough, his prediction came true in a few weeks when lightning struck the hospital and it burned to the ground. Eventually, John Hendricks overcame his grief and married Martha Jane Gregory, who had 7 children from a previous marriage. John amazed his stepchildren with stories of his visions. He told them that one day cargo would be shipped through the air. Martha rebuked him, saying, "John, you shouldn't have such fool talk."
Mama told me a lot about him. She thought a lot of him as a stepfather. He would have to go off in the woods and get visions, he thought, and come back and tell what he dreamed. Anyway, a vision he'd see. It was going to be a big place there one day.
John's most famous predictions centered around the area now known as Oak Ridge, and eerily predicted the end of World War II.
There will be a city on Black Oak Ridge. Big engines will dig big ditches, and thousands of people will be running to and fro. They will be building things, and there will be a great noise and confusion, and the earth will shake. I've seen it. It is coming.
John Hendricks died in 1915, so he didn't live long enough to see his predictions come true. He's buried here in Hendricks Creek subdivision in the middle of the city of Oak Ridge. His predictions lived on, however, and serve as a testament to the man who had become known as the prophet of Oak Ridge.
I put this picture up here just because I like it. Look at that woman. How'd you like to live with that sour-faced woman? Huh? And look at what he's got in his hand. Got a pistol in his hand. General Groves. I would tell you that if it hadn't been for General Groves, yes, please.
Is there a statue in the woods for John Hendricks?
No, there's only the tombstone in Oak Ridge. It's at 123 Hendricks Drive in a subdivision named for John Hendricks. Okay? General Groves was a key to the Manhattan Project. Here's what Colonel Nichols had to say about it. He's the biggest SOB I've ever worked for. Most demanding, most critical, always a driver, never a praiser, abrasive, sarcastic, disregards normal organizational channels, extremely intelligent, has the guts to make difficult, timely decisions, is the most egotistical man I know. Knows his rights, sticks by his decision, abounds with energy, expects everyone to work as hard or harder than him. But if I had to do my part of the Atomic Bomb Project over again, had the privilege of picking my boss, I'd pick General Groves. I think that says a lot about the timing, the man, the things that he accomplished, and the uniqueness that was the Manhattan Project, and that he was a man for his time. This is what Oak Ridge looked like. That's Tennessee Avenue. It was a place of mud. This is still here today. You go to Oak Ridge, you can still see this building is now the Children's Museum. These flat tops are still there. They've all got pitched roofs, and there are lots of trees around them. But that's West Outer Drive. And that some of the communities in the east end of Oak Ridge remain today just like they did in 1943. They've been kept up well, and the houses intended to last some maximum of 5 years are still standing, some 65 to 70 years later. There were lots of trailers there. At one time there were 75,000 people living in Oak Ridge, thousands of trailers. Yes.
Who did the planning for the layout of the city?
Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill did the planning. But you hand that back there, Dave. They tried to give it to Stone and Webster, and Stone and Webster gave them a plot map that just showed rectangles, and they knew, hey, you don't really know what you're doing. So they got Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill to design the city. They designed it around communities, several small communities, and this is one of them, Jackson Square. Are you two together?
Yeah.
Yes.
Would that be the original hospital? It was like a barracks, wasn't it?
Those are dormitories.
Mm-hmm.
The hospital is actually just off to the right, and they're just about a quarter of a mile from there. And the original hospital today is on the site where the original one was built in 43.
My mother was a nurse, and in '46 she came down to apply for a job, and I remember sitting on the wooden steps.
Okay, of the
At
hospital.
you had a wooden walkway. I
Right.
remember.
These Jackson Square, that's still there today, and this parking lot is about to be renovated. They're beginning to focus again on Jackson Square as a center of activity in Oak Ridge. This is the Castle on the Hill, it was called. Actually, John Hendricks said that the center of power for all this would be built between Pipes Place and Tadlock's Farm. When they came in 1942, the first shovelful of dirt they dug was right between those two farms. That's where they put the administration building. And then now the federal office building has been built there, and that's where it resides, right across from Jackson Square.
Hey, Ray.
Had the ninth largest bus system in the nation. Please.
One of my, not me, it's my.
I wouldn't give you a bag. Please.
Now at AMSE they have a flat top house on display.
They
Would that
do,
be the
yeah.
same kind of house that
Absolutely. The same kind of house. That house has a neat story in that it was bought, taken away from Oak Ridge, spent a number of years on the lake, and then that family donated it back to Oak Ridge. When they brought it back to Oak Ridge, put it behind the American Museum of Science and Energy, a man that I worked with, Bob Presley, grew up in that house. He was delighted to see it come back. He donated back to it a part of a little storage box that he had used when he was growing up in the house. So yes, that flat top house is original to Oak Ridge and has been refurbished to look just like it did in 1943-45. Bus system, ninth largest bus system in the nation. You remember me telling you about Lester Fox, the guy who got the story about the young kids and had to tell people. Senator McKellar called down to tell him. Lester and his brother saw an opportunity, so they bought 100 buses and became a part of this bus system. Now their buses broke down every day, Lester said. And one day he was driving to Wrecker and had one of his buses tied on behind the Wrecker. He was in Clinton, city just east of Oak Ridge. And he pulled off. He saw another one of his buses broke down. So he pulled off and tied that second bus behind the first one. Pulled out on the road. Policeman stopped him and said, Lester, you can't do that. Leave one of those buses and come back and get it. And besides, I want you to meet me at 8:30 on Monday morning in the courthouse. Lester worried all weekend about what was going to happen to him when he went to the courthouse on Monday, but he went. When he walked in, that police officer was there, and he said, Lester, come with me. He took him to the clerk's office and said, give this boy a driver's license. He was 14 years old when he got his driver's license. This is what the building, the construction of Y-12 looked like. Remember I said 1,152 Calutrons cost $450 million? And there had 22,000 people working to get approximately 60 kilograms of uranium-235. It took them a long while on 1,152 Calutrons, nearly a year, to get enough material for a little boy and a little left over. Tremendous undertaking. Great Britain came to the United States and said, here's what we need to do to build this nuclear weapon, this atomic bomb. But we don't have the resources to do it. Only you do. And that's what the nation did. The Manhattan Project wasn't just those 3 sites of Oak Ridge, Los Alamos, and Hanford, Washington, where the national park's going to be, Manhattan Project National Historical Park. If we can get it through the Senate, if we never get them back up there into work, I think it's going to flow right through. So it's through the House already. But there were places all over the nation, even in New York City. There's just been a website posted that talks about the secret places of the Manhattan Project in New York City. It was all over the nation. But Y-12 was the only place separating the uranium for the first atomic bomb. This is what it looked like, those large buildings. This is the person that invented the Calutrons, Ernest Lawrence. Yes, sir.
When they were building this facility, did the workers, all these workers, know what they were involved with? Or?
No, sir, they didn't. Out of the 22,000, there might have been 100 top-level scientists and the chemists. Now, the chemists understood that they were dealing with uranium. Of course, they couldn't say that word. The word uranium was classified, so you couldn't say it during the Manhattan Project. Don't you know that Groves was frustrated when he found out that all these people down here in Tennessee were numbering these buildings that were processing uranium? They numbered every one of them starting with the number 92, the atomic number for uranium. That's 9201-4-5, 9204-3. This building right here is 4. This is 9204-3. This is a building that continues to have Calutrons in it today. They continued to operate until 1998, and they're still in standby today. We're going to talk about Calutrons here in just a minute, and you'll have a better appreciation for that. But know that that building will become a part of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. Lawrence invented it.
Are these, I've got you.
Yes.
Are the ones in that building still around the silver?
No, they're copper.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that they were ever silver. I believe they've always been copper. This is what Calutrons look like. Calutron just stands for California University Cyclotron. And there are 96 of them in this oval shape. This vacuum chamber goes between each of these magnets, one in each one of them. Now this is a batch process, 22,000 people operating them. And the way that a Calutron works is actually really simple. No moving parts. And a way that I can illustrate it for you that you'll appreciate is if I had 2 rubber bands hanging down from my hand, and I put a golf ball on one and a ping pong ball on the other, I held it down to my side and I spun it real quick for half a turn. That golf ball would stretch that rubber band further than the ping pong ball. So I'd get 2 arcs. It's exactly what happens with uranium-235 and 238. 3 neutrons difference in mass. That's enough difference that the centrifugal force will cause them to split. The magnetic field causes them to bend, 1 ion at a time. Very slow process. They'd run them for about 100 hours or until the charge box got empty. Then they would take that collector out at the top, take that small amount of uranium-235, put it in gold-lined coffee cup-sized containers, put 2 of them in a briefcase, strap it to an Army lieutenant's arm, dress him up to look like a sailor, put him on a passenger train up through Chicago and out to Los Alamos. That's how every bit of the uranium for Little Boy got transported from Y-12 to Los Alamos. Don't you know people here in Knoxville wonder what in the world's going on out there? Thousands of trainloads of materials coming in to build this place. We never saw anything leaving. It's all going out in the briefcase every couple of weeks.
His name Westcott Westcott, the official
Ed Westcott.
photographer. And I was wondering how many of these photos are
Okay.
his, and then also when the photos became declassified.
How many of the question is how many of these photos are Ed Westcott's? The
Uh-huh.
answer is all of them.
Oh, okay.
When did they become declassified? After the war ended and the Manhattan Project was over, they declassified a lot of information about the processes. They began to publicize. They wrote books about it. These photographs were released at that time. Okay? Yes.
You mentioned transferring the material to Los Alamos. The question, I guess, has two parts. Did all three facilities undergo the same rapid development at the same time? And coordination must have been a terrible problem. I mean, they were worried about espionage, nobody could talk. And how was coordination between the three facilities? Did that go through the Pentagon, or did it go through Los Alamos directly?
Had two questions. One, were all three sites, Los Alamos, Hanford, and Washington, being developed at the same time? The answer is yes. How did they coordinate and work between one another? The answer is they didn't. It was each of those places were independent operations, and Groves intentionally isolated and separated. He even drove it to the part that a person working on one floor in a building at Y12 couldn't go to another floor. He intentionally separated out the specific responsibilities. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't know where the material needed to go, but for example, the two Army individuals who were carrying the uranium from Y12, they would go to Chicago and they would hand it off to two others. That means that the two that went out to Los Alamos with it knew where it was going, but they didn't know where it came from. The ones leaving Oak Ridge knew it went to Chicago, but they didn't know where else it went. So they deliberately isolated the operation.
Was Groves at the Pentagon, or did he move around to the three facilities?
No, he had his offices in Washington, D.C. He started in Manhattan, which is where the name came from, but he moved his office to D.C. I saw a hand. Thank you.
My question was, were there any cases of the Army, the soldiers being irradiated by carrying the uranium?
No, you can hold highly enriched uranium. The answer is, was the soldier irradiated? You can hold highly enriched uranium in your hand. Doesn't give off a lot of radiation. Gives off a little alpha, but you want to be sure you don't get too much of it in your hand. If you get too much of it, it gives off a lot. Okay. Your other question. You don't get another bag.
Fair enough. How would they deal with individuals like being irradiated in the process of making U-235?
It doesn't give off radiation.
In the entire process?
No. Now, when you get too much of it together, it goes critical and gives off a lot of radiation, so you don't let it get too much of it in one place. His concern is, how did the people keep from being irradiated? Remember, Y12 is a machine shop. Now, if you were over at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory and you were around the reactors, you have to be concerned about radiation there. At Y12, as long as we keep the material separated, enough of it, don't let it get in a small space together, then we don't have to worry so much. Now, you don't want to inhale it, you don't want to eat it, get it inside your body, you got bad news. But you know, alpha radiation, your skin will stop that. Yeah?
Did they know a lot of this stuff, or is this like more through our current research? Like when they were building all of this, did they know that?
Remember, those people, she asked, did they know this when they were building during the Manhattan Project? And the answer is no. They did not know what they were dealing with. This is the first time it's ever been done. A few of the scientists understood the principles involved, but they were learning as they were going. Fair enough? All right, they also brought 14,700 tons of silver down to use as electrical conductors because there was a shortage of copper. Now, Casey and I know where, and others in the room might know as well, but know exactly where this silver is sitting in this picture. That chain link fence up there could be seen from Bear Creek Road. Ted, you ever know where Silver City was in Oak Ridge? It was actually behind the old building 9720-6, the easternmost building on the planet. Right behind it, the 6 would have been over here. That fence, and if you went on down the road just about 100 yards, you're at Scarborough Road. So people were driving by looking at $400 million worth of steel. And the chain link fence is all that's separated. We can't even keep the copper wire on the copper, electrical wire now. But back then, they didn't worry about that. We gave that silver back to the treasury. Some of it didn't go back until 1970. And the reason was we kept it here. It was in the Calutrons in building 9731, and they were being used to separate isotopes of other elements other than uranium. And some of those isotopes were used to put into the graphite reactor and to make them into medical isotopes. So the same equipment, the same science that separated the uranium from little boy also separated isotopes that were used as targets to make medical isotopes. And to keep that in perspective. These are the Calutron girls. If you don't know it, you need to appreciate the fact that we have a bestseller book out right now called The Girls of Atomic City. Denise Kiernan has written it, and it's getting more publicity for Oak Ridge than anything we've done in a long time. It started because she saw this Ed Westcott image on the internet. And she also happened to see one of the weekly columns that I write in the newspaper and contacted me, and she said, I'd like to do a story on these women. So I introduced her to one. If any of you know Colleen Black, that's who I introduced her to. And Colleen took it from there. She just took her all over town. And she's written a good book. This particular one here, this is Gladys Owens. And Gladys worked in Oak Ridge from January to August of 1945. She didn't remember that picture being made until she saw it at the museum in Oak Ridge. We brought her out to Y12 and set her on one of those stools and took her picture again in 2004. She said, Ray, I never did know what I was doing. Can you show me what I was doing? I said, yeah, Gladys, I can show you. So I opened up one of these cabinets. I said, Gladys, when you were adjusting these knobs right here, you were changing the value, and she reached over and tapped me on the arm. She said, Ray, I still don't know what the hell I was doing. But she said, I do know that if I had any bobby pins in my hair, they'd just go and go stick to the wall because of the magnetism. That is, it was a neat lady. She was one that I turned to for an interview when Oliver North's television program wanted to interview a Calutron girl. And they called me, and I said, sure, I'll get you one. So I called Gladys up, and I said, Gladys, I've got a television program that wants to interview you. And she said, all right, I don't feel good anymore. I can't get out of the house. Why don't you get somebody else? I said, sure, Gladys, I'll get somebody else. She said, who? What program was that you said? I said, oh, it's Oliver North's program. She said, Ollie? I watch him all the time. She said, would he come here and interview me? I said, you bet he would. She said, okay, if he'll do it, I'll let you do it. So I called the program back, and I said, I got you the interview on 2 conditions. One is you have to do it at her home in Kentucky. The second one is Oliver North has to do it personally. They agreed to that, came and did that interview, and when he left that house that day, she called me before he'd even got to his car. And she said, Ray, you just made my day. Ollie was here. It's neat to see that. Now, Colleen Black is very much that way today about Denise and the girls of Atomic City. She's just so excited. David, would you hand that? Yes, sir, please.
Is it documented who most of the people in the photos are, or is it just sort of...
Actually, is it documented who the people are in the photos? I've had a good bit of luck with people stepping forward and helping me to identify them. I know 3 of the ladies in this photograph. The one where you see the women leaving Y12, We have that in a huge mural, and I'm going to show it to you in a minute. But it's in Jack Case, in a huge mural. And when we dedicated that building in 2007, we did the ribbon cutting, we published that picture in the newspaper and asked for anybody who knew people in the picture to let me know. I had 5 ladies that were identified in that picture, and we brought them there that day and let them participate. Ed Westcott knows many of the people. He wrote down their names, but a lot of them are not known. A lot of them. This is what Leslie Groves had to say about these young women. Now, I couldn't say this today, but I can quote what he said. Above all, I knew the labor supply of East Tennessee was of a very high order from the standpoint of willingness to work. I knew that we had to use many female operators. Tennessee girls would be much more easily trained and would do better work than those of other sections of the country. The principal reason for this was that the women here were not sophisticated. They hadn't been reared to believe they knew it all. Ain't no way we can say that today, but old General Groves can say what he wants to. This is the picture I was telling you about that had these women leaving the plant. That's Alpha 1 and Alpha 2, those big buildings right there, 9201-1 and 2. See this lady right here carrying her coat? She was Miss Atomic Bomb in 1945. She's one of the 5 that we identified and brought back that day. This lady here, the one back there with the white collar, and this little short lady here was Dorothy Coker. And we had all of them there to recognize them and get them to sign an autograph or sign a book, a photograph of the same image that's hanging beside the large mural. We had Ed Westcott there. That whole area of the cafeteria the walkway back there, big glassed-in walkway, is the Ed Westcott Gallery. We really do recognize Ed and are proud to see him getting some recognition. See this fella here? He's just standing there. When Casey and I were finishing up The Nuclear Family, we needed something to end the movie with. So we decided, I think it was Terry Marlar's idea, to recreate that photograph. Okay, so we did. We took some people, not all women, but we did take some people, kind of staged them like they were to begin with, and we had them walking away from the highly enriched uranium materials facility. Now notice this fellow right here is just standing there. Ed's in a pickup truck, in the back of a pickup truck, standing, shooting down the hill. And he's telling these women, walk on up this way, and he's got them all doing that, so he's taking their picture. And this guy's not walking, he's just standing there. So we put Ed Westcott in there and told him to just stand there. Now that's me behind him saying, Ed, don't move, Ed, don't move. He wanted to walk every time we took the picture. But you'll see that in the movie, those of you who get it. This is what little boy looked like. We're going to pick up speed now. This is the graphite reactor. That's what Fat Man looked like. Fat Man was a plutonium bomb. Little boy was the uranium bomb. And of course, the reason for the graphite reactor was to prove you could produce plutonium in a graphite uranium reactor. And then they went out to Hanford, Washington, and produced those the plutonium out there, both for the gadget and for Fat Man and for all the nuclear weapons that we have today. That plutonium was produced out there. This is the Potsdam Conference. It's kind of interesting to note that Truman said to Stalin, him and Churchill were there, and Truman said, the United States has a new weapon that's going to end the war. Stalin said, I know. This fellow had already told him. His name is Klaus Fuchs. He was a British citizen. He came from Germany. He was working at Los Alamos, and he had stolen the plans of Fat Man and gave them to Russia before Fat Man was ever dropped. He was arrested after the war, spent 14 years in jail, came out, gave the plans to China. Done more than anybody other than Professor Khan in Pakistan, probably, to spread nuclear weapons knowledge and technology around the world.
What was his motivation? Was it money, or is it...
You've already got a package, right?
Yeah. What was his motivation?
I'm not sure. There's books written about him, and in some of those books they talked about his philosophy and what he was thinking, but I wouldn't doubt that what money had something to do with it too. Anybody else have any ideas about foul spooks? There may be somebody in the room knows more about it than I do. This is the highly enriched uranium materials facility at Y12. This is the New Hope Center. This is the Jack Case Center, 3 of the new facilities. And we are planning to build the uranium processing facility. We have approval to start construction. We've already started moving the road. This will be the nation's location for handling all uranium activities. And we hope to see that in place, and it'll still take 8 to 10 years to get it built and get it operational. But we're hoping to start actually constructing on it today. Now, this is a good image that shows the highly enriched uranium materials facility here, and this is an artist's concept of what the uranium processing facility will look like. This is also a good place to deal with one of the issues that always comes up when I give a talk, and it's about the nun. Okay, let me tell you where the nun came. She came across this ridge, down to the water tanks, walked down there, came right down to that corner of the building, cut through those fences right there. What should have happened when she cut the first fence is about 6 guards should have showed up with rock and said, "You do that again, we're going to shoot you." That would have been the end of that. Didn't happen that way. It's been very embarrassing for us. We've learned a lot out of it, and I just do that to deal with your curiosity of how did the nun get into Wycliffe. If you'd given me a week, said, think about the most embarrassing, ridiculous thing I can think of. That happened to Wycliffe, I would have never thought an 82-year-old nun would come across behind me.
So I'm
Yes,
glad,
ma'am.
I'm glad that you raised that. This is just my 14th year here, and most of what I hear about Oak Ridge, of course, is the history of modern activism around the Oak Ridge area, especially Y12. Is there a separate history of sort of activism and when the first protests occurred and sort of a chronology of all of that that's available somewhere?
The question is there a separate history about the modern activism around Oak Ridge and especially Wycliffe nuclear weapons? I'm not aware of it, but I wouldn't produce it, so it would be coming from some other source, I'm sure. Yeah, Dave.
Ray, can you talk about the materials facility, the uniqueness of the
You got
construction?
that.
Oh, I'm sure of it. The uniqueness of the construction of the building.
Yes.
There was a discussion of, yes, the nun got through all the levels of security,
right?
But then to get in the facility, it's impossible.
I'll be happy to. The question is, what about the security of the facility? And the answer is it has multiple walls. It is built to deny access, and that there's no way that anyone would get close to getting to the material. The material is very well controlled. Okay, yeah.
So didn't the nun talk about why she came? Is it just a protest process?
Why did she come? It was just a protest.
What year did that take place?
2012. Talk a little about the uranium processing facility. You can see the statistics there. The cost is going to be very expensive. The largest construction project in Tennessee's history other than the Manhattan Project. Notice the size compared to the rest of other construction projects that have happened in the area. This is how it's going to happen. We'll clear the area. Yeah, the parking lots are where we do this. Yeah, and put in the foundation. And bring the building up. Some of the statistics about what will be happening, the places who might be involved in contributing to the construction, places in Tennessee where the subcontracting may come from. Now let's talk about non-proliferation just a little bit. Talk about the training that we provide, very unique training for securing nuclear materials. Some of the trainees that we've had, police staff, FBI. As you see the long list of people that have come to Y12 because of the unique capabilities that exist there. Things that we're doing that has to do with changing the reactors, research reactors from HEU to low enriched uranium. Some of the statistics about how powerful the enriched uranium is compared to what and its value compared to how much it would take to run every household in the U.S. for 11 months. Where we do provide the material to research reactors around the world, lots of locations. This is what Y-12 looks like today. That's what we're changing it to look like in the future. Quickly about the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the Department of Energy's largest laboratory. A lot of these buildings are new buildings. We learned how to do private financing structures from them and built New Hope Center and Jack Case Center after that model. East Campus, Chestnut Ridge Campus, that's where the Spallation Neutron Source is. The newest Science and Technology Park, the first ever industrial park located at a federal facility. And then the West Campus is being changed now. It too started as a part of the Manhattan Project. It was the first continuously operated nuclear reactor that was in an industrial site and it proved that you could produce plutonium from that reactor. Some of the outstanding characteristics of the laboratory: most intense neutron source, most powerful computing facility. Again, a very prestigious and forward-thinking laboratory, the largest in the Department of Energy. By teaming with them, we have been able to work on global security challenges and issues. The next few photographs I'm going to show you, many of them were provided by Jim Sumner, and it is examples of where we've gone. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory and Y-12 working together have gone to various places to bring back material around the world. This is Project Sapphire. Started it all in 1994 when it went to Kazakhstan and brought the material out. Then this one is with Tbilisi, Georgia, transferring the material, putting it on the plane, Georgia, or actually arriving in the States. C5A, C5 Galaxy. Libya material coming in. These are the centrifuges that Gaddafi had in the Libya material. Brought it out of Iraq in 2004. 2008. Chile had an earthquake down there while they were bringing it out. Mexico, Australia is the most recent place that we brought it from. These are the locations around the world where we've gone to get material that was not protected sufficient to assure that terrorists couldn't get their hands on it. That's the thing to remember. That Oak Ridge and the Oak Ridge National Laboratory and Y-12 will go anywhere in the world to assure that we can protect that material. Yes, ma'am?
Why is it Russia on the map?
I don't know, Jim. Why is Russia on the map?
We haven't brought material directly from Russia.
We have not brought material directly from Russia.
We have, in a lot of cases, we have taken material from places where it was at risk and helped repatriate it
back to Russia. Some material has been taken from places, former Soviet Union states, been taken and provided to Russia, helping them. We brought the Russians over and actually took them through the highly enriched uranium materials facility. We've given them tours, we've had them in training programs. We're trying to help to give them the capability to protect their own material. Yes, please.
How cooperative was Argentina in the process?
What was the question?
Argentina, how cooperative was Argentina?
Very, very much so, yes.
Very cooperative.
You said before that there were some words you couldn't say.
uranium.
Was that the only word?
No, I'm sure it wasn't. But it's I'm going to end with this one. I'd like to see us return to history, the history of Oak Ridge, and this area, the University of Tennessee. You have to remember, there would not be an Oak Ridge National Laboratory if it hadn't been for two University of Tennessee professors who decided there needed to be a national laboratory here in the South. Dr. Pollard was one of them, Bill Pollard. I can't think of the other person.
Present.
Sorry?
Present.
Yes, Presence. Exactly, thank you. Dick Presence. And those two individuals were key elements and instrumental in looking at and finding the politics. At that time, they were building national labs in Chicago, out in California, up in the Northeast, New York, around cities. They weren't building them out in rural areas, and they didn't think the South, well, it had been a while since the Civil War, but we still had some prejudices that didn't want a national lab in the South from a political standpoint. Those two individuals, working with others, they actually had 14 other Southern universities to join them, supported that politically and worked it through until there was a national laboratory formed. And the Oak Ridge Institute for Nuclear Studies, ORINS, was formed by Dr. Pollard as a way to funnel that research activity into and take advantage of the graphite reactor. And over the years, 13 reactors have been built by the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. So the first reactor training school was held at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. In 1946, Eugene Wigner was the science director there that year. And Admiral Rickover, who was Captain Rickover at the time, came to learn about reactors and recognized that using highly enriched uranium, you could build a reactor small enough to go in a submarine. The start of the nuclear navy there, the start of nuclear power here, nuclear medicine here. So those kinds of things, Oak Ridge and this area has been the center of for years. Now nuclear security is one that I think we have an opportunity to build on what's been done. You saw those pictures since 1994. We've been all over the world helping to protect that material, and now we're training people, helping them to know how to protect their own material. So I think the window for those, we're providing a place or a window for those people to come, a go-to place for them to come and look at this area through the Institute, and these are the pillars of the Institute. I talked only about the education and training piece, but I think it's a golden opportunity that we have facing us here. I promised you a test. I'm about out of bags.
Ray, you got a question over here.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Which site was put under construction first, ORNL or Y12?
ORNL and Y12 both started in February of 1943. The question was which site started construction first. Ground was broke at Y12 on February the 1st. The first building was started on February the 18th. Somewhere in that time frame, they started the graphite reactor. I don't know the exact date, but it was in February. So both of them were started in February of 1943. If you don't have a bag and you want to answer one more question, I got one more bag.
So one interesting tidbit, Ray, the graphite reactor went from groundbreaking to critical in 11 months.
Well, November the 4th was when 43 was actually when it went through. You have a bag.
But there was a question about costs.
Yes.
He was, as a youth, a member of the German Communist Party.
Okay.
And he was later lost some of his jobs and things like that as a result of it. And actually, at the end of the whole process, he ended up going back to East Germany and became head of their development of nuclear.
The comment that he made was about Klaus Fuchs, how that he was in Germany and lost his job and lost some of the things that he was doing research in, came to the United States, and then eventually went back and was And he was instrumental in some of East Germany's nuclear activity. Yes, please.
I hate to come back to this logistical issue, but it's almost mind-boggling how I have a bag.
Thank you. I got to give it away to somebody. Go ahead.
You know, Groves didn't have he had the engineering and maybe, and he certainly had the drive, but he didn't have the appropriate skill set to put all these pieces together. I mean, he could isolate these pieces, but somebody had to be putting it together. And what's that at Los Alamos?
Okay, let me help you with that. This question has to do with where was the mastermind? Where was the master strategy for pulling this together? The answer goes back to the S1 committee that was formed with Bush. His first name is funny. Vannevar Bush. He understood the concept and the idea. Some of the other people, like Ernest Lawrence, understood what was needed. Some of the others, Conant was one of them. Leo Szilard, who helped Einstein write the letter. Those were the scientific minds that were working. Edward Teller was a part of it. But Enrico Fermi was part of it. Those were the people who were working the scientific part, and that's where Oppenheimer and Groves disagreed sharply on how to manage. Groves wanted to keep everything isolated and separated, and Oppenheimer says you've got to let these scientists talk to one another. They collaborate. That's where you get the good ideas. That's where things work. So they had that in Los Alamos. Oppenheimer ran it that way, and Groves allowed it, but he said you got to keep it up there on that mesa. So the scientific minds were the ones that understood and worked the details of how to make a bomb. They were also the ones that after they had created and saw what they created, most of them had second thoughts about what they'd done. Einstein even says that writing that letter, he felt, near the end of his life, he felt was a mistake. We let a genie out of the box here that even today we're having difficulty managing and containing it. Thank goodness there's not been a World War III. Okay? And you look at the number of people killed in wars and you see that atomic weapons has kept the world free from that kind of killing for 70 years. What does the future hold? Hard to tell. You don't have a bag.
Did several of the people come from Kingsport, the Union Carbide?
Oh yes,
Eastman?
thank you. Did people come from Kingsport is his answer. And it wasn't Union Carbide, it was Tennessee Eastman Company.
Right.
Tennessee Eastman, Groves asked them to come and manage Y-12 because of their recognized ability to manage large operations. Tennessee Eastman came down, managed Y-12. What became Union Carbide, Carbide Carbon Chemical Company, actually started managing the K-25 site and then eventually took over all three sites by 1948. And then Union Carbide stayed in Oak Ridge until 1984.
Well, I'm from Kingsport, and that's the reason I knew some of that.
Yeah, the Tennessee Eastman Company came from Eastman Kodak, came down and managed Y-12 during the Manhattan Project, left in about May of 1946. Other questions? Yes, please.
You know, you mentioned that right after the war, the government released a lot of the Westcott photos.
Yeah.
Did they release photos of the Calutrons and of technological things, or were they all?
They actually did release a lot of the Calutron technology. They actually went to a World's Fair in Amsterdam and built a Calutron, demonstrated it. During the first Gulf War, there were some photographs taken of some sites in Iraq, and Dr. John Guggen, the scientist at Y-12, who was involved in all of our processes, invented the Colex process, that column exchange process used to separate lithium for the hydrogen bomb. They brought him these photographs and said, "What's Saddam doing here?" He says he's building a little Y-12 here, 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 and here. They sent rockets in and blew those places up. After they came in and looked on the ground, they found drawings that were very similar to the early Calutrons. They didn't have any of the enhancements that we've done to Calutrons since then. That information is still restricted today. But the original idea, and remember I told you Calutrons, they don't have moving parts in the actual part that separates the material. It's just a mass spectrometer. Scientists all know about it. They understand you can separate those isotopes. It's not a hidden technology. Some of the things we've done at Y-12 over the years that the Oak Ridge National Laboratory has done, by the way, they're building a new separator today because there are some isotopes that we're running short on that were separated over the years at Beta 3 that we now need that capability again. So the laboratory is looking into a modern, they won't call it a Calutron, but it'll be called something that has to do with electromagnetic separation. It's a mass spectrometer.
Well, so the trajectory of my question, I was wondering your opinion on this then. Do you think the government's release of that material so soon after World War II ended was an early deterrence effort, propaganda effort, since it assumed that through Klaus Fuchs they really had the secrets already? We were trying to say, but don't try to catch up with this or overcome us or anything, because we're out in front, and so be afraid of us.
I don't think it was that at all. What I think happened after the war ended and they realized what they had created, they struggled quickly to try and find a way to control it, to contain it. They tried to form an international atomic energy commission and couldn't do it. It wouldn't form. So they wound up forming the Atomic Energy Commission in the States. And what they did from the get-go is to say, you have to control the material. Anybody, come on, a little boy is just a little uranium here, a little uranium here, and a little dynamite to blow it together. And as I said, you hold it in your hand, but you don't want to get too much in your hand. Building an atomic bomb is simple. Getting the material to build it is more difficult. And that's the way we've chosen to try and control the nuclear proliferation, is to control access to the material. Would you add anything to that?
Well, basically, control the access to the material, but also control the access to the technology to separate.
To separate,
What you're alluding to.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that AQCon did that was so bad, was taking that technology and making it available to other countries such as North Korea, Iran, and some of the bad guys, Libya.
Right. Just to reiterate just a bit, Dr. Kahn took that centrifuge. Now, centrifuge, I told you about rubber bands and ping pong balls and golf balls and a half circle. Just think of putting it over your head and letting it spin in a full circle. The 238 will make a larger circle than the 235. It's that simple. The technology to make something spin that fast, the technology to make something large enough to be efficient, it takes a long time to separate that material in a centrifuge, or even in a Calutron for that matter. So that's why it's taken North Korea and Iran so long to get sufficient material to have these nuclear tests. I'm not sure, but what one of them that was supposed to have done might have been because it didn't have enough material. Look, I don't know, that's merely race speculation. But he's right. Dr. Kahn took that knowledge and gave it to people who couldn't have created it for themselves. Other questions? Well, I'm sorry, one at the back?
Yeah, one quick one.
I don't have a bag.
You mentioned the that's okay. You mentioned the Calutrons. There also was gas diffusion.
Yes, gaseous diffusion.
And you didn't mention those, but I was curious if that was a more efficient way of getting...
Yeah, thank you for that. His question has to do with gaseous diffusion and its efficiency. After the war ended, and actually by March of 1945, the K-25 gaseous diffusion process had come online. The way gaseous diffusion works is in an area the size of my thumbnail, this barrier material that you pump it through as a gas will have 1 billion holes in that material. And that 235 goes through those holes just a little quicker, a little easier than the 238. So if you do that over 3,000 stages, you're going to begin to accumulate a higher percentage of the 235. Now it's a continuous operation process. Took 22,000 people, 1,152 Calutrons at Y-12 to do the electromagnetic separation, a long time, many months, to get just a small amount. the K-25 process would operate at a tenth the cost of what it took to run Y-12. So they shut down Y-12. And the gaseous diffusion process is where we've gotten all of the highly enriched uranium that's in nuclear weapons today. The one other process I'll mention quickly, the thermal diffusion process, was the S-50 site. It was located at the K-25 site because there was the world's largest steam plant at the time was built there. And they didn't have the K-25 barrier material ready for gaseous diffusion, so Oppenheimer saw the Navy experimenting with thermal diffusion. He told Groves, if you'll build us a thermal diffusion plant, we'll put a little bit of slightly enriched material into Y-12's calytron and speed up the process. Remember, it was taking forever, they thought. So they did that. They built that thermal diffusion plant. Oh, by the way, the story that goes with that is that Groves told the contractor, I need a thermal diffusion plant built right here for this steam plant, and I need it in 90 days. The contractor said it can't be done. Groves looked him in the eye and said, you've got 80 days. He built it in 76 days, operated it for 3 months, and it's calculated that by feeding that slightly enriched material into Y-12's calytrons, they shortened the war by 3 weeks. So that's the processes. You've heard all of them now, I hope. There was another question, I thought.
That was me.
Yeah, it was you.
That was my question.
Oh, okay, good. We got that taken care of. All right, thank you all. I've enjoyed it.
All right, thank you all for coming out. Obviously, everyone here is on our mailing list because you know about this event. We haven't quite set September's brown bag yet, but please watch your email. We'll send out the notices for that as soon as we have that locked down. So thanks very much, folks. One more hand, please, for Rick.